Hello, and welcome to the Thyroid Warrior Podcast. I'm Ebony, and I'm here as your wellness facilitator. I'm going to be sharing my experiences in managing Hashimoto's disease. I really hope that it'll help you on your personal journey. Keep in mind, however, this does not substitute for medical advice. It is only for your information and motivational purposes only. Now, let's get started. Hey y'all, I'm so excited about our guest today. Her name is Susan. She is a dear friend, a mentor, and she is hands down one of the most kind people I have ever met. And I wanted her to come on the show so that you can take some of the experiences that she has had as someone that has lived with a chronic illness to show you what's possible. And just a little bit about Susan. She has made over $40 million in personal sales, and she's also led high performance sales teams to make over $600 million in revenue. She's an award-winning sales strategist, consultant, and speaker, and she now works with ambitious entrepreneurs as a founder of Sales Mastery Society. Susan is on a personal mission to help create more millionaire entrepreneurs, and she wants to help us all establish and have a long-lasting mentality of wealth and abundance in the world. And please know that she means it. I have seen her work. I have listened to her speak, and she inspires me, and I gain so much from her every single time. So I'm so excited for you to hear what she is going to be sharing today, especially if you are a mom. She definitely is going to be dropping some really good pointers and information for you today. So I can't wait for you to hear her speak and give you some tools and tips and just overall guidance on how to be okay with being comfortable with who you are and using your gifts for good and just understanding that you matter. So let's go ahead and jump right into the episode. I want you all to get just all of the goodness that is Susan. So we are going to be hearing all about her story today because it's important to me that you all see and hear different perspectives, because we're kind of all on a journey to wellness, and many of us have experienced different things in terms of a hidden or chronic illness, and it's just frustrating. So I want to make sure that we're building each other up and that you're hearing how other Thigh Warriors or autoimmune warriors, or Spoonies as they're so lovely called, really just work on being the best version of themselves. And that is why I invited Susan to come today. So Susan, thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you so much, Ebony. I am so excited to be here.
Yes. So let's just jump right into it and talk to us a little bit about how you came to this place in this very moment based upon your health scare and what happened to you. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you learned about your condition?
I laugh, but it's not really funny. So I had a major car accident back in 2011 and subsequently developed chronic pain, chronic headaches, chronic migraines. And this is for somebody who has taken Tylenol maybe 3 times in my entire life before that and had one migraine on the end of a very bad hangover. So no judgment there. But I really didn't think it was a thing. And when I developed all of these physical symptoms, mostly after my car accident, that just simply wouldn't go away, it really was undiagnosed, to be honest. And I kept advocating for myself and doing research and self-diagnosing and saying, are you sure it's not something else? Do I have this? Do I have that? And the formal diagnosis actually didn't come until after I had had a complete breakdown, and I pushed for my own health needs to say, I need more support. I need to be in a program that's going to give me the tools to succeed, which was a focus around fibromyalgia and complex chronic diseases, such as chronic fatigue syndrome. And so I have been formally diagnosed as fibromyalgia, but I know that I've probably suffered from adrenal fatigue, chronic fatigue, as well as IBS on my journey to here. And the very first thing that was addressed was not all of these other things. It was the migraines, because it was the thing that actually ended my career. It was the most physical thing that ended my career. And it created a lot of spin-off issues with depression, with anxiety, with panic attacks. It was a massive panic attack that created a breakdown moment for me. And it was in seeking, asylum, really, like just peace from the chronic white noise that was going on in between my ears and my head all the time, like hearing static, coupled with the auras, the light sensitivity, the smell things that come with, for me, that's what came with my migraines, and it was happening every other day. It qualified me to get Botox treatments. And so that's the route that I took initially in order to get the relief that I was desperately seeking so that I could really calm down the rest of my nervous system. The closest that I got before they said fibromyalgia was centralized nervous system sensitivity, something like that. Yeah, central nervous system sensitivity syndrome. So it's still just a syndrome and not a disease. To be honest, while I was working in corporate, I just wasn't bad enough to get a formal diagnosis. I was too high functioning, which
I know about that.
is crazy to me. And so I have a high pain tolerance and a high pain threshold, and it almost was to my detriment because I couldn't necessarily get all the help that I wanted as quickly as I probably should have gotten it because I powered through it.
I relate to that so much because I remember, and I was even just talking to my sister-in-law about this. For me, it takes a lot to kind of just bring me to my knees. And I know for a fact that my symptoms went on for so long without a diagnosis. And, along that, you feel kind of gaslighted by other people too when you finally start feeling comfortable enough to talk about it out loud. And even with my family, talking about your pain and talking about what's going on, particularly from an emotional standpoint, is just taboo. No one talks about it. So for a long time, even for me, my family kind of just chalked it up to, oh, you're just a hormonal teenager.
Mm.
And I'm like, I'm the most even-tempered person ever. What are you talking about? So I definitely understand and can relate to that. And I know so many listeners can relate to that as well. And just kind of along those lines, once you actually got your diagnosis and once you really advocated for yourself, what sort of tools or strategies have you used to be able to run your business and maintain your life, really?
Oh, so I so relate to what you shared because I think part of it came down to educating the people around me more than tools or strategies or support, to be honest, because being so high functioning and having an invisible illness where you put on a brave face every day, and even those that are closest to you, like people that I would spend hours with at work, my entire family outside of my husband had no clue that I was suffering, right? And I was choosing to suffer as well because I didn't allow myself the space to get better. And I found that once I actually admitted, it's like, not that I'm an alcoholic, but it was almost feeling like once you admit that there's a problem, then you can move forward. And I
Mhm.
hadn't even admitted that having chronic pain was a problem. I just thought it's something that I'm going to fix and I'm going to soldier through and manage and really just put a band-aid on by going to all of these treatments and therapies. And I'm not saying that the treatments and therapies didn't work. They absolutely, because somebody asked me, out of all the things that you've tried, which one was the best? And I said, I can't answer that because they all did their part in putting me back together and helping me to heal. And so for me, the biggest thing was admitting that I had a problem, being able to ask for help and support, which I'm going to tell you, as the oldest of three, the person that was always called upon to help others, including
Mhm.
my parents who were immigrants. And I was reminiscing this morning with somebody, and I said, I've forgotten that I acted as a translator, and I spoke for my parents from the time I was probably about 7 or 8, because they couldn't always articulate exactly what they meant when they were speaking to other grown-ups. And so I had to be able to explain, and as a small child, explain to another adult what another adult wanted to convey. So being able to ask for help was really humbling, because I have been so able to do it on my own for such a long, long time. Like, that's almost 35 years plus, right? Because at
Mhm.
this point, I was in my early 40s when I had this breakdown. So for me, beyond just that, like the basic foundation piece, the key strategies have been self care, faith, and gratitude. And I know that those kind of sound like, well, those aren't really real things. But I'm going to tell you, when you feel like there's nothing else good in your life, and there's plenty of good in your life, but when your brain and your body and your emotions are so full of crap that you can't even see the sun shining, you can't even enjoy birds singing because it's making you feel worse. Being able to kind of dig, pull yourself out of the gutter, so to speak, and see how wonderful life is, even in the smallest of moments, really made me feel like I could keep living. Because there are moments when you have zero spoons, right, as a spoonie, or
Mhm.
sometimes it's negative. You're like, I like ran out of spoons a long time ago, and I'm now running on fumes and then some. To actually be able to feel like you can drag yourself out of bed, that you can be pleasant, that you can actually function, and that people aren't looking at you as if you're crazy because they can't figure out what's wrong or why you aren't better, or what could possibly be keeping you from doing what you're doing, because they can't see it, they can't feel it, they don't understand it. And so for me, being able to do something for me was and is still the biggest strategy, because without it, nothing else happens.
Mm. I've only been talking about that for a very long time, and it's so convenient that you share that, because I even went live on Instagram earlier and was talking about the importance of self-care and self-love. And I think the only reason why I kind of went off on that tangent was because I saw, like, how you kind of just like swipe through. I was trying to distract myself from the fact that my jaw was hurting. So I was like, I'll get on Instagram. And I was scrolling through, and I actually just so happened to see like a post by Michael B. Jordan. And I saw like love, and I was like, what is this? And I, pushed the screen so that I could hear the audio. And he was talking about like self love and all this stuff. And I was like, wait a minute, this, this right here is what I have been talking to my peeps about. And I'm always saying, you can't be someone else's something when you're nothing for yourself.
Mm.
And I have learned the hard way that self-care isn't selfish. And I was challenged today to do something for me because you become so wrapped up in the negative and I'm so tired and how come no one else gets it and why can't they see like my insides they hurt, but they just don't. And like you said, just educating people around you about what's going on is important. And sometimes you also have to understand that even when you explain it, they still might not get it. So you have to be able to understand and recognize, all right, I might be in this by myself in terms of trying to get other people to see, but that's when you kind of have that community and other people that get you. And I remember when we first met, I was like, oh, you get me. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, I think because I've had friends, really close friends, who've had chronic illnesses, diagnosed with autoimmune diseases. Actually, my dad has a hyper, I can't remember. He has something with his thyroid as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important to have that community, but also not to wind up in pity city, because that's what I found is that for folks that had kind of succumbed to their diagnosis and felt like I am my illness, I never felt that way. I felt like I am living my life. This is what's around me and not happening at me or to me, but certainly something that I want to make sure that I can live with. And I realized early on that I did not want to be around individuals that had that illness mindset, so to speak. And I know that your audience doesn't subscribe to that. And I think it's important that while you can communicate, what's happening and know that the people that don't have it don't fully understand that even if you're trying to find support with folks who do have an illness or do understand that you're mindful of how important your energy and your mindset is, and then you don't want to fall into like pity city, as I like to call it, with being like, woe is me, and I can't do anything because what if this happens? What if that happens? Well, what if it happens? What's really going to happen? And I know that for me, part of my breakdown happened because I was living from a fear-based position in how I approached my life and how pain played a huge role in that. And so every decision that I made, every focus that I had was, what if this makes me worse? Instead of what if this makes me better? And so it was a very protective stance to be able to preserve what I already had. But in doing so, I completely limited my ability to grow and get better. And it was once I released that like today, I am by and large symptomless. I definitely have my, good days and my worst days. But generally speaking, I live as close to near normal as I have qualified it. And I am completely prescribed medication. And it wasn't easy. It was dang hard to get here. But for me, it has been worth it, even to continue with, my food focus, which we have bonded over the
Yes.
whole thing of gluten free and trying this or that. And is it more challenging? Absolutely. Does it make me feel awkward at times? Yes, hell yes. To be the only person at an event, like a 300-person event where I go, I'm gluten free, I'm this, like I have a garlic intolerance, which I'm going to tell you as a Korean, it is not really a thing, but it is a thing. And
Yep.
it is really hard. It is challenging. And so, but it's making those tough decisions in order to know that on the other side is just something that's so much better.
Mm. That just spoke to my heart, my soul, my everything, because you hit on some very important things. But one of the biggest thing was functioning out of fear and, you know, moving away from pity city and a couple episodes ago, I talked about entitlement and really being sure that as someone that's going through all of the things that we go through on a regular basis, not taking the stance too of, well, I'm sick and you should do this for me, or I don't feel well, so you need to blah, 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 blah. Like whatever that thing may be, like it's very easy to slip into that as well. And I remember when someone was saying like, what is that like living your life with a chronic illness? And I kind of scratched my head and I was like, what? Chronic illness? Me? Who? What? Come
Mm-hmm.
again? Because I don't identify with that. And I try very hard not to, because I don't want to have a label on me. I don't want to put myself in that position where my mind starts to go there, where I'm like, well, I have a chronic illness, so therefore I can't do this. Or I have an autoimmune disease, so therefore I can't do that. Like I try very hard to stay away from that. And that's honestly another reason why I decided to change all of my social media handles and my website to Joyful Ebony, because I've learned that you really have to have fun and you really have to learn how to harness and focus on that inner joy, because when you don't do that, life sucks. It's hard enough just from your day to day. And when you have a hidden chronic autoimmune disease, all of those things makes it 10 times harder to show your teeth and smile, or even, as you said, just be grateful about the things that are going right. And that's why I find myself just smiling and laughing more. I mean, there have been some things in my life over the past year that have kind of helped me along that path. But ultimately, right here is exactly where I want to be and I enjoy being. And even as a parent, and I'm not a parent, so I can't speak to that. And it makes me very happy that you are one. So, can you talk a little bit about how you take time for yourself and self-care, but also that you don't have that mom guilt on the days where you don't feel well? Like, how do you structure that to make sure you're taking care of yourself, but that your family also and your children have what they need?
So this is a bit of a conundrum for me because there are times where I don't take care of my kids because I have to choose me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful that I have a life partner. You know, my husband, or my hubby, as I like to call him, is a wonderful, gracious, generous man. And this trial that we have gone through is really like it was a fire, right? Like when you're walking through a fire and you don't know if that person is still there, he's still there. And I am forever grateful that he is, because I know that this can tear families apart. And so I'm very mindful of that. And so for me, you know, I'm thankful that my husband does provide me a lot of support, and that he knows that in order for us to survive as a whole family unit, I have to do what's best for me first, even if in the short term it doesn't make things easy for him or for our kids. And truthfully, there have been a lot of times, a lot of years, a lot of days, a lot of hours where I was like another child. And I joke because I'm always like, my husband is like the third child in terms of decision making and strategizing and kind of adulting. But when it comes down to actually doing the work and putting in the time, it's very much the opposite. And it has been the opposite for a lot of stuff, where all of the household chores outside of, when I was in corporate and that's all I could give was spent, right? Like all my spoons were spent at work. Then all of the house and the kid stuff, he had to pick up the slack. And there was a lot of stuff that just simply didn't get done. And we made that decision together that this is how we need to have it so that we can continue to survive and make it through. Outsource as much as possible. And I had to let go of the guilt and also the control that I wanted things done a certain way. And for me, it was just, is it more important that it gets done or that it gets done my way? And for the sanity of myself, and more importantly for my husband and our relationship, it was just more important that it gets done. So those are the things that, we've put in place. We have purchased meal planning services, although we both are good at cooking and we enjoy it. It was having to make a decision. It was having to go to the store or order stuff and make sure that we had room. And did we take something out of the freezer? And all of these things that you don't realize when you don't have the bandwidth available, it just sucks a lot of energy. And I'd rather that energy be spent actually having quality time with my kids and with my husband. So I know that for me, if I need to replenish, and my favorite way to do that is to soak in an Epsom salt bath here at home with a book, and whether it's audio or real book. And my husband knows, like if I spend an hour or two until the water gets cold in the bathtub, I'm a much better mom and wife when I emerge because the brain fog is better. My tiredness is better. I just feel more at peace and I'm more relaxed and I am not tense or stressed or yelling, which really doesn't serve anybody. And so for me, I'm mindful of the things that are the top priorities for my kids. So we pick them up and drop them off at school. That's something that we balance off. We're spending a lot more time this year. That's one of our commitments, is to spend more time with our kids and really be involved with their school. And it means that those are in the evening. If that's going to happen, I might need to take a break or reduce what I'm doing on the work side with my business in order to be able to make sure that I have enough energy. So it's a lot of communication. It's a lot of understanding, and it is also a lot of empowerment with my kids. They're older now. They're 13 and 11, but we've been kind of grooming and training them to make sure that they know, and I'm sure that God has partly done this on purpose by, having had this illness happen while they were still very young, where there was no option. Like mom really couldn't do all the stuff that I might have wanted or could do if I was 100% healthy. And so that means that when they have chores, they have to do the chores because there are no other options. And when they do certain things, we're teaching them along the way to make sure that that burden is not just on us as parents, so that everybody has a role to play in our house.
That was so good. I just, three snaps. I appreciate your candidness with that, because a lot of what I've heard from many people within the community, and particularly those that are moms, they're like, well, what do I do and how do I choose? And it really brings me comfort, and I'm sure it brings a lot of others comfort to know that sometimes you just have to choose yourself. And I'm just grateful that you said that. And hopefully for all the moms that are listening, they'll know that you have to be okay with releasing that. So I'm just very grateful that you said that. And I know that for many of us, we're definitely high functioning and we do a lot. So can you talk to us about how you manage your business and how you're doing all of the wonderful things that you're doing despite having a chronic illness?
I don't do it all. That's how it happens. So while it looks like I do it all, as I said, it takes a village to run my business, to run my life, to raise my kids, to live my life in general. And so for me, I don't do it all. I prioritize, and things definitely have a season. And I mean, this ties back to what we just last discussed. And I want to add a piece here, which is that if you don't choose you, because and sometimes I still struggle with this, even so, whether it's in my business or in my life, like all the different structures and systems that I put in place, anytime, because there's lots of times where I doubt myself and I question, should I be doing it this way? Is it really worth it? Because even when we brought in the meal planning service, it's more expensive. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, we said, okay, let's try it and see how we like it. And we tried 2 different ones because we had, 5 days of meals versus 3, or 0. And mm-hmm. I personally, I would prefer having meal service every day of the week. My husband didn't like having it so prescriptive in terms of like limiting his options, because there are certain foods that he wants to cook and make and eat. And I said, great, then you take care of that, because I don't want to do that. I like the simplicity of the meal service. And so it's really about, compromising, prioritizing, understanding what actually works for you. And for me, having a lot of home support allows me to function more in my business or with my kids. And it didn't happen overnight. Like I went from having to refill my bucket, as I like to say. And so for any moms that have little ones, Fill Your Bucket is a book that I used to read with my kids. And it demonstrates how we can help fill others' buckets. But I realized that I was so busy filling other people's buckets. And I think as moms and as women, you often do that and you don't prioritize yourself, and your bucket is empty. And you can't keep filling from an empty bucket. And that's where, with my breakdown, my main focus was I have to make sure my bucket is as full as I can make it, knowing that it's already at a deficit because I'm not at 100% all the time, right? You're not at full spoons. So if your bucket is already empty to start off with or below full, then you're gonna like collapse really, really quickly. So my journey didn't happen overnight. It took a long time for me to actually even just stop being exhausted. And I had to put that oxygen mask on first to get me in line before I could figure out what else could I do. And it took me a while to let go of the guilt that I'm at home, because I was at home at the time, literally doing nothing except for sleeping. And I felt like I should be able to clean this massive house, but I couldn't, because it kept triggering my pain. It kept providing physical symptoms that would make me relapse and get worse. And it wasn't worth it. My husband looked at me and said, it's not worth it. Like it is not worth you doing this if it's going to put you back a week, a month, a year. And so as much as you might want to do all of these things, and I have tried to do lots of things in my business, I realized I can't, like, this is insanity. And if I'm committed to what it is that I need to do, so I always check myself first. Am I doing this because I actually am going to make the commitment to spend the time doing something that is more important to me, that only I can do? And that includes self-care, because only I can give myself self-care, and go to an appointment where I'm going to receive self-care, right? So all of these things, if I've made the commitment, I've made the choice, then I will outsource. So I am grateful to have a team. I have a structure in place. I will take breaks throughout the day. So I'm not the business owner that's like, I only work between 10 and 4 or 10 and 2 and then I'm off for the day. I I work as much as I want because I love what I do, but I also know that for the days where I can't work straight and I take a 3-hour nap in the middle of the day, that's okay. I can, I'm a night owl. So
Mm.
for me, I will get my creative spurts at the end of the day, maybe after dinner or as we're putting the kids to bed. And I will sit and I'll write a whole bunch of content for an hour. And I'm totally okay doing that because it works for my life and it works for the way that my business is structured. And I don't feel any guilt about it because, again, I communicate with my team, I communicate with my family, so that if there's commitments that I've made to me and I am honoring my integrity to myself, that I'm going to follow through anytime that I make that decision.
I'm not tearing up. Let's just drop the mic on that one. that that was just I yeah, I'm done. It's just it makes me so happy because there are times where I have a difficult time articulating that because it's so much. And for me, even just creating things for my audience, it brings me so much joy. And for me, like I do still work a 9 to 5, and it's draining at times, but at the same time, once I get home and I come in my office and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to do podcast stuff, or I'm going to figure out the next challenge, or work on my website, or do some research to get things going. It fills me, and I don't look at it as work, but every decision that I make, every path that I'm going down, I think about, okay, how am I going to build myself up so that I can be present and give 100% of what I have to the people that I really care about. And that was just so necessary. You just spoke life into me in this moment. So thank you.
Oh, you're
And as we wrap up our time together, I'm grateful for you. I try to tell you this all the time, but you just mean so much to me. And can you tell us some of the things that you're currently working on and things that you're going to be doing? Because I always want my audience to know and grow to love all of the people that I interview. So could you tell us a little bit more of what you're working on and what's coming down the pike for you?
Sure. So for me, I am super excited about continuing to pour into my amazing clients like you. I'm so grateful for you inside of our amazing Sales Mastery Society. So that is my main focus in the short and really the long term. But I just recently launched my podcast. So I am super stoked for that.
It's so good, y'all. It's good.
So Master the Sales Game is a podcast that is talking about making sales fun and making it easy and not sleazy and being able to share authentically, how as a servant leader, you're able to bring more of you to the table and learn the skills that maybe you don't have background or experience in, whether that's through me or some of the guests that I'll be bringing on, and some of my clients that have been just able to master it in their own way. Because I think this is not about you doing it exactly my way; it's about you doing it in your way to bring more of you out, and do it in a way that feels really, really authentic, really in integrity to your personality, your truth, and allows your audience to have more of you than maybe where you are today. So those are the things that I'm the most excited about. I may have something else that God's put on my heart, but I don't know enough about it yet to talk about what that's going to look like. But um, yeah, but stay tuned because I hate being cryptic.
Yay!
But I've been tasked with leading, stewarding a movement, and yeah, if you're a strong, powerful woman, then stay tuned because I have something up my sleeves for you for sure. So stay connected. Follow my podcast. Come and listen in, and I hope that I'm able to add some value to you and help you see what's possible if you're a business owner, a salesperson that is needing to sell in your life.
Ugh, y'all, you need to follow Susan. She's amazing. Like in real life. Seriously. Well, I can go on and on and on, but you guys will just have to follow Susan, and everything about her will be included in the show notes. I'll definitely make sure that you have all of the information. But thank you again, Susan, for coming on. And as always, friends, be happy, be whole, and be well. Take care. Okay, Thyroid Warriors. Get out there and take things one step at a time. Remember, be great, reflect on your triumphs, and as always, be well. Take care.